In approximately 1 week's time, Path of Exile 2's early access is going to pass 2 months of being in play. And there has been a lot of ups and downs in these 2 months. First thing I want to get out of the way, and this is not the point of this video, is the fact that since the patch of 0.11, there has been literally radio silence from Grinding Gear Games. This has spawned a lot of rhetoric and noise around what is going on with Path of Exile 1. Now, this video is not about that. They did say that they were going to provide us with an update on the new league in Path of Exile 1 by the end of January. Now, the end of January is a couple of days away. So whether they come true on that, only time will tell. We'll wait and see. But the point of this video is the state of the end game and all the noise that's going around the end game. I want it on record that I agree. The end game, it's not in a good state at all. In this video, we're going to explain why it's not in a good state. At least my opinion on all the information we have that I would like to present to you to show why the end game is where it is today. So that's the point of the video, is to explain to you the timeline and hear it directly from Jonathan's mouth leading up to the release of early access. I think there are some signs and some information from those interviews prior to the release of early access that really explain why the end game is not as polished as it should be. Now, the campaign to me is stellar. I don't think they could have done a better job. The combat, the boss fights, just awesome, awesome, awesome. And we're still missing Acts 4, 5, and 6. Now, it becomes a little bit redundant today because we're replaying Acts 1 through 3 in a different difficulty, which can become redundant if you're rolling a lot of characters, okay? But having said that, people are still enjoying, and I really don't hear a lot of complaints about the campaign. It's the end game where is the crux of the problem, and a lot of people are complaining about it. So I put forth to you an explanation of why the end game is nowhere near what the end game should be at. So with that in mind, let's get to my explanation. All right, so before we begin, let me just make you understand my experience with Path of Exile 2. Now, I very quickly did some math, and I have a ton of characters in Path of Exile 2. I've played every day since the launch of Path of Exile 2. I have not missed a day. I have a level, so in softcore trade, I have a level 87 Deadeye. I have a level 71 Storm Reaver was nerfed. That's why it's only level 71. And I dabbled as an Infernalist for about 45 until level 45. And then I shifted to solo self-found, and I have a 83 Pathfinder, and I have an 82 Invoker. Now, I also have 4 or 5 other classes that I tried all the classes, but really they're level 10, level 12, the third, just because I didn't gravitate towards those styles of builds. But when you accumulate all those builds that I tried, I'm at about 350 to 400 hours. 350 hours for sure. And then if I were to go, and I did not add the time with my level 20s and 15s, but probably get another 20 or 30 hours. But just for argument's sake, I have 350 hours in the game. So I've played the game. I agree with the criticism that comes with some of the others in the player base that say the end game just doesn't feel right. Maps are too big. Seems like there's no purpose. It's boring. The one shots, on death mechanics. I can go on and on. You guys already know what the issues are with the end game. So why are we in the state that we are when it comes to the end game? Jonathan, Grinding Gear Games, made such a big deal about end game, end game, end game. That's where it's at. That's where the campaign is just something that people do in order to get to the end game. And that's where players spend most of their time. So how can we be in this state that we're in? Well, I present to you the following timeline and shift in the content development of Path of Exile 2's early access, which, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, big warning, big disclaimer, this is strictly my opinion, my speculation, me putting pieces of the puzzle together and coming up with this assessment. You get in the comments section and let me know if I'm out to lunch and way off base. But this is my interpretation on how I believe we are where we are. And it's because of this. So I believe that things changed when on October 8th, Vessel of Hatred launched. And obviously, Diablo 4, it's in the ARPG space. It's the AAA studio. It's the big Goliath in the room, the big elephant in the room. Everybody's watching. Grinding Gear Games is no different. Of course, they're watching Diablo 4. They're watching Last Epoch. They're watching all the other ARPGs in the space. What are they doing? Obviously. But this is where this timeline starts. October 8th happens, and I'm not going to get into all the minutia, but let's just say Vessel of Hatred launches on October 8th, and the feedback probably almost immediately. A lot of people are having fun. A lot of people love Vessel of Hatred, but probably the comment that jumped out the most, and this is what Grinding Gear Games, I speculate, grabbed onto, was the fact that, yeah, Vessel of Hatred is amazing. It's a great game, but there's nothing to do in the end game. That's the genesis of where I'm going with this. So October 8th, Vessel of Hatred comes. The weeks to follow, all this feedback. Oh, amazing. I love this. I love that. But it's the butt of Endgame. There's just nothing there. There's nothing to do. October 28th, 3 weeks later, give or take, Grinding Gear Games issues a statement that Path of Exile 2's early access is delayed by 3 weeks. In that statement, Jonathan explains that there was a bunch of server-side infrastructure work that took them a lot longer than they expected. And he also went to explain how another impact was how they promised that all the microtransactions, MTXs, would work across both POE 1 and POE 2, and it was more challenging for them than originally anticipated. And that's kind of the genesis of what his statement was on October 28th. I present to you that this decision was based off of what happened with the Vessel of Hatred weeks before, when they saw all this complaining about Diablo 4 not having, everything was fun, but the end game was lacking, where they said, not only do we have the issues that they mentioned in that delay statement, but they also made a shift in their content development. On November 8th, Jonathan did an interview with IGN, and he kind of touched on that a little bit. But what I really want you, and what confirms that they indeed had a shift in mentality from, I suspect their original intent was to give us a bang out campaign and a sprinkle of the end game. So I suspect they wanted to focus all their attention on the campaign with a little bit of focus. So 80-20, if we want to put numbers on it. But after what they saw with Vessel of Hatred, I think they shifted from giving us the full campaign, only giving us half the campaign, and putting more focus on the end game. And this was confirmed on November 21st, in my humble opinion, when Grinding Gear Games did their live reveal, and we found out everything about Path of Exile 2's early access. Don't take it on my word. Let's see the clip where Jonathan actually confirms that they had a content development shift months ago. Now remember, this clip is from November 21st. And he states in there that they had a shift a couple of months ago, which takes us to the beginning of October, end of September. But I would argue they had this shift when they saw what happened with Diablo 4. Here's the clip.
So far, we've only been showing you footage from the campaign, but some people would argue that the end game is where the game truly begins. Something that happens almost every time a new action RPG launches is people saying, there isn't enough in-game content. Well, we want to make sure that in PoE 2, people don't feel that way, and we actually only changed our development priority for this recently. The first 3 acts of PoE 2 already take around 25 hours to complete if you're a new player. This is already a pretty significant campaign. On the other hand, people spend hundreds of hours in Endgame each league. We realized that finishing the rest of the campaign for early access was actually a bad idea. Instead of having Acts 4 to 6 in early access, we could concentrate on Endgame and make that great. For new players, a 25-hour campaign is already a huge game with lots of content. But for existing action RPG players, what you mostly care about is all the endgame challenges to overcome. So several months ago, we switched the entire development team's focus over to making endgame content.
Okay, so you heard it from him. Now, if we look at the timeline, okay, November 21st is when they had to reveal to us what the end game was going to look like. Now, we don't get our hands on the game until December 6th. So technically they had until December 6th to develop the end game, but they had to give us the whole picture of what we were going to get on December 6th. On November 21st, October 8th is when Vessel of Hatred launches, and when they realize, oh shit, we don't want to have this. Jonathan stated many times he doesn't want to hear about the end game is lacking in Path of Exile 2. So when they see this and all the outcry with Vessel of Hatred and the end game, they're like, oh my god, we have to do the shift. So technically they only worked, and when I mean only, obviously they were working on the whole game, but I present to you that their focus was on the campaign. And yes, people were working on the end game as well, but the majority of the work was on the campaign. But then sometime in early October, they did this shift. They delay on October 28th, they delay early access to December 6th by 3 weeks. This is all in combination of that. And so I argue to you, this tight window where they remove people from working on the campaign and focus on the end game, they didn't have enough time. So they worked on the end game. And the end game is beautiful. There's a lot of good, but there's also a lot of bad. And I think this timeline hopefully makes sense and explains to you, in my humble opinion, why the end game is not as polished. Now that I've explained my version of what's happening, please let me know what you think. Am I out to lunch? Did I miss something? Was something else said that contradicts my theory? The bottom line is, guys, I personally think they made this shift too late into the game, so to speak, and they did as much as they could. And I personally think they did a great job with the end game. It just needs further development. And hello, this is the point of early access. Now, I know that pisses off a lot of people using early access as an out, and I am no way defending them, but in my opinion, these are the facts. This is what we know. Now, whether you agree with it or not, that's another story, and you can let me know. But I think they just, because of that shift in October, and because the game, well, it was supposed to be November, but it got delayed late October, announced in late October that it got delayed by 3 weeks to December. So that window, that time frame where they shifted all their resources to endgame, they just didn't have enough time to get it to where it is. And I always say this when it comes to Path of Exile games, it's in the hands of Grinding Gear Games. They have a history of making good games. Path of Exile 1, for example. So I would suspect that with more time and more development, more improvements, Grinding Gear Games is going to get the end game to where it needs to be. And I suspect that also this radio silence is also an indication that they're doing exactly that. There's a big change coming, and this is why there's radio silence. They got a lot of decisions to make and a lot of issues to fix, not only in the game in general, but more specifically in the end game, where that's where the majority of us play and stay in. This is where we like and play a lot of our game time is in the end game. So I just wanted to put this out there. I know there's a lot of noise going on there right now, and rightfully so. The end game, it's not good. I don't agree with the one shot mechanics. I don't agree with the on death effects. I don't agree with these mammoth maps and portals. Portals are just the fact that we can teleport from. That's a band-aid solution. I don't agree with having to traverse hours to find a rare or an elite boss or a boss in a map, and I don't agree with bosses being one in every four or whatever the calculation is. The boss fights in this game, in the campaign, is what makes the campaign, amongst other things. Why do you want to throw that away in the end game? Personally, I think bosses should be in every map. It's one of your shining stars in this game, grinding gear games, in my humble opinion. Anyway, that's my thought. It's not an excuse video, guys. It's just I kind of wanted to shed light on the fact that there was a shift here, and this shift didn't give them enough time to polish the end game at the end of the day, is what I'm trying to say here. So I got my high hopes on them fixing this end game issue amongst all the other issues, armor, all the herald issues, and you know, the play style shift from the campaign to the end game. There's a lot, but they're gonna get it done. At least I'm hoping so, because I'm enjoying this game, even though at some points I feel like throwing my PC out the window with some of these crazy deaths. It's just crazy. But I have over 350 hours in the game, so clearly they're doing something right to be able to hold me on for that long. Anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I would love to hear them. And as always, if you can like, comment, and subscribe to my content, it doesn't cost you anything, but it would mean the world to me. All right. And by the way, guys, I'm still live streaming on Twitch. Channel name is SamyCaps. Come and watch me live. We're currently running a Poison of Concoction Pathfinder build, and we are in maps. Yeah, we're in tier 12 or tier 13s. We found a couple of citadels, so we're still pounding that out. I'm level 83, I believe. So come and check me out. We'd love to have you. Hey, we can talk about this if you want. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you in raid class. Take care. The opinions expressed in this video are mine and solely mine. Healthy debate is always encouraged. Hate is never welcomed. So get over it.